Howdy. My name is Texas Jack Omohundro, and this is my story. I was born on July 27, 1846, at my father's home in Palmyra, Virginia. It was a period of growing unrest in America, and soon enough that unrest would erupt into war. I had 10 brothers and sisters, and when I was only 15 years old, I followed my older brother Orville to war. They said I was too young to fight, so I served as a headquarters courier for General Floyd for the first couple of years of the Civil War. Eventually, I joined my brother on the front line with the Virginia Cavalry, where I served as a scout and sometimes spy under General Jeb Stuart. Old Jeb told me about his time out west, and I decided if I made it through the war, I would see it all for myself. I ended up making it through the war, though many of my friends and my commanding officer Jeb Stuart did not. I soon set off for Texas to see the great American West, though a shipwreck left me stranded on the panhandle of Florida for a short time where I was a school teacher. But I finally reached Texas, where I soon became a cowboy. Cowboy work is hard work, but I found it suited me. I started as a cook's helper, but I soon showed them that all those years and miles riding hell for leather across Virginia battlefields had turned me into one of the best horsemen in the country. I worked at the Sam Allen Ranch, at the time the biggest in Texas, and I led cattle on the Chisholm Trail, the Goodnight Loving Trail, and to every cowtown on the Great Plains. On one of my trips, I came across a wagon train that had been ransacked. I followed tracks leading away and discovered some children who had been taken and their parents killed. I rescued them and took them to Abilene. One of those children took my name when he became a Wild West performer, and he later gave Old Will Rogers his first job in show business. My last cattle drive was to North Platte, Nebraska. One of the friends I made in Kansas, Wild Bill Hickok, told me to keep an eye out for his old buddy William F. Cody. Well, from the moment we met we were fast friends, hunting, working, and drinking together every chance we could. One day, a famous writer named Ned Buntline came to Nebraska for a hunt. Cody and I entertained him, and at the end of the hunt he promised us he was going to write stories about us in the Eastern papers. Ned was true to his word, and soon readers all across the country were hearing about the exploits of Buffalo Bill and Texas Jack. Soon aristocrats from all over the world were coming to Nebraska to see the American Great Plains and to hunt for deer, elk, and antelope, but mainly for buffalo. Grand Duke Alexis of Russia came out to hunt with a man I had fought against during the Civil War, General George Armstrong Custer. The Earl of Dunraven and I hunted together and became close friends. We even visited Yellowstone Park in 1874, just 2 years after it was founded. In December of 1872 our old friend Ned Buntline convinced us to start a stage show that we called the Scouts of the Prairie. We weren't great actors, but audiences were more interested in seeing real heroes than actors anyway. The female lead part was played by Giuseppina Morlacchi. Morlacchi, who I called Josephine, was a famous ballerina from Italy, and American audiences loved her because she introduced the can-can dance here and was about the greatest dancer anyone had ever seen. Not to mention she was the prettiest woman either side of the Mississippi. Well, I was smitten immediately, and it turned out so was she. When our dramatic season ended I wrapped up some business out west and hurried back to Josephine. We were married in September of 1873, and performed together for the rest of our lives. Our next tour was without Ned Buntline but with an old friend of mine and Buffalo Bill's, Wild Bill Hickok. Wild Bill liked the money we made, but didn't enjoy acting. He soon decided it wasn't the career for him and headed back west, soon to end up in Deadwood. Between acting seasons I would head out west, mostly to lead aristocrats and wealthy patrons on wilderness adventures in Wyoming, Colorado, and Montana, but also to pursue Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull after Custer's defeat at Little Bighorn. My old partner Buffalo Bill and I split up our acting partnership but remained friends. I started my own group and put on sold-out shows in all the major eastern cities. In early 1880 I was playing a set of shows in Leadville, Colorado, where my wife was engaged in a series of ballet performances. A brief bout of pneumonia on top of existing tuberculosis was too much for this old cowboy, and my heartbroken wife buried me in Evergreen Cemetery. My wife died just 6 years later, but my old friend Buffalo Bill went on to become the most famous man in the world. He visited my grave in 1908, 20 years after my death, and paid for a new memorial that stands there today. After my death, cowboys became America's heroes, like the knights of Old England, but with Stetson hats and six-shooters instead of suits of armor and swords. My old friend Buffalo Bill made cowboys the center of his new show, and he included my words on cowboy life in the programs handed out to thousands and thousands of spectators at shows around the world. Because Bill Cody never forgot me, the world never forgot the cowboy. In 1984 a group of good folks got together to form the Texas Jack Association to make sure that I wouldn't be forgotten. 10 years later, they cheered as I was inducted into the National Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, the earliest born person in the Hall of Great Western Performers. In 2021, a new biography about my life and legacy was published, titled Texas Jack, America's First Cowboy Star by Matthew Kearns. And in April of 2022 I was the cover story in Wild West magazine. I guess a good cowboy is never really forgotten.